My name is Gary Nicholson. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. I've lived in Nashville since 1980. I'm originally from Texas, and I've been a songwriter my entire life. And you're listening to Talking Blues.
You describe yourself as a songwriter. I know
Yeah,
you're a guitar player. At what point do you think you realized the importance of song?
I think probably in my late teens. I went to music school at North Texas State and was an English major to begin with. And I realized because I've been playing music since I was maybe 14 or so in little bands that I realized that I was going to have to go ahead and commit to being um, a musician, but I hadn't really written songs at that point. And then when I was 20 years old, I quit school at North Texas after 2 years and moved to Hollywood when I was 20, and I started writing songs at that point.
Okay, before you moved to Hollywood, you had an interesting encounter with Graham Parsons.
Yeah, that's really what led me to make the move. I had a band in Dallas, and we were fans of. At that time, the only country rock music was the Burrito Brothers. The Byrds had done a few things, and there was Poco, and there was just that's kind of it for country rock. There wasn't really anything, and so we were really interested in playing this country music, but we were long-haired hippies playing country music, and we couldn't work in country bars because we were long hairs, and we'd get our ass kicked if we tried to play country bars. And then if we tried to play in rock bars, nobody wanted to hear country-based music. But we had this excellent steel guitar player, Larry White, who was like a prodigy of a steel guitar player. And so when the Burrito Brothers came to Dallas, Larry gave Sneaky Pete a tour of the MSA Steel Guitar Factory in Dallas, and we were invited to come to their show, and we came and saw their show, and then we met the band, and we invited Graham to come over to the little crash pad that we had all our gear set up, and we jammed all night long, and I think Graham was so impressed with Larry being such an expert steel player, because Sneaky was kind of a hippie steel player, but Larry had been playing steel guitar and knew everything. Graham could call off any song, and Larry would kick off the song like the record. And so Graham was really taken with him, and said, "You guys got to." We told him our woes about not being able to do play the music that we were drawn to, and he said, "You need to come to Southern California. You should come there." And so we we did. 2 weeks later, we drove straight through to L.A. and Graham got us in a talent show at the Palomino, and we won. And all the people there wanted to meet Larry because he was a prodigy.
Can I ask you, do you remember that gig? Like, what did you play that made you win?
We played a few songs that I had written. Um, well, I can't remember the exact
But
songs
these
that
were
we.
original tunes.
They were original songs, and maybe one was called Heart to Heart. Um, I just came back to say goodbye again, and a few others. Anyway, the amazing thing that night is at the Palomino was James Burton, Glenn Campbell, Delaney Bramlett, um, and a great steel guitar player named Red Rhodes.
Oh.
And Red was so taken with Larry's steel playing, everybody walked right past me to talk to Larry. And I didn't even have a Fender guitar. I played a 335 because I was kind of a blues nerd as a kid, and my influences were Freddie King, B.B. King, that kind of thing. So I was just learning how to play country music because of Larry being such an incredible steel player. And so, um, yeah, we met all those guys, and that was it. We got to hang out with Graham a little bit more, and there's other stories connected with that. But that was our introduction to being there. And of course, I decided by that time I was not going to go back to school at North Texas. I was going to stay in California. So,
Where did your blues influence come from?
well, I was just a kid playing surf music in the garage, kind of, Dwayne Eddy and Ventures and that kind of stuff. And my neighbor across the back alley, he knew a guy that was the cook at the White Sands Supper Club and at Jacksboro Highway in Fort Worth, and he took me and my little paper route friend uh, to hear the band. And the band that we saw, we didn't know who they were at the time, but it was King Curtis with Cornell Dupree on guitar, and
No.
and that had a great effect. And then right about that time, Freddie King had a hit on Hideaway, and Freddie was a local Dallas guy. He was our local guitar hero, and so I learned all those Freddie King instrumentals and got taken. I didn't even know there was a BB King before I knew about Freddie King. It's crazy. But yeah, that's where it all started, and then I guess I really didn't find out about Muddy and Wolf and everything else until the Rolling Stones kind of, everybody found out about Chicago blues from being fans of the Rolling Stones. But Jimmy Reed was huge in my area, and so I saw Jimmy Reed play a few times, and then you start finding out about other things, and that T-Bone Walker was from Dallas area, and then the country blues, Mance Lipscomb, and we all knew about Lightning Hopkins, and there was so I was taken with blues music early on, but at the same time I had a Beatle band. We did all Beatle covers, and that's how we got work. We were popular and won all the talent shows at the skating rinks and that kind of thing.
Well, you must have been a pretty good guitar player because you seem to have played with a lot of people.
Well, I was, I don't make a big deal out of my guitar playing. When I moved here from Dallas, I was thinking, what are you doing? You're going to move to Nashville, Tennessee, and be a guitar player where they got every great guitar player in the world. It's just like, but it's I'm not a dedicated, uh, get up every day and practice. And I found out in order to be a session musician, guitar player in Nashville, you had to cover Eddie Van Halen 1 minute and James Burton the next. And, you have to be so versatile to be able to cover all those styles. And honestly, I was really taken in by songwriting by the time I moved here. I'd been playing uh, 6 nights a week, in a country bar in Dallas for a couple of years, and playing a bunch of country music because you could have a steady gig if you played country music. But then I had a rock and roll band that we would rehearse in the daytime and open shows for various rock acts that came through Dallas. But we were trying to get a record deal and stuff. But I was making a living playing country music, and in Texas, if you play country music, you get to play Western swing, and you get to learn. Playing Western swing is like you get a chance to try to play jazz as close as you can to jazz.
Right.
You're playing swing music, and it develops you as a guitar player. So and I can play, and I've had gigs as the guitar player in a lot of situations, but I'm not competitive about trying to be a session guitar player in Nashville.
So tell me about how you wound up in Nashville.
Okay, so I was in California. I made a couple of records in California. I formed a group, and we had a record deal. We made a couple of records with a group called Uncle Jim's Music. Nothing really happened with that, and I saw Don Henley form the Eagles, and they took off and were doing everything, and I was back playing in bars in the valley, and not anything was happening. So I back to Dallas, got married to my college sweetheart in 1973,
Who you're still with?
who I'm still with after 51 years.
Wow.
And um, and so I spent those years between 74 and in 1980, my friend Jim Ed that I mentioned, um, he had been in this band with Don Henley, and they moved to California, and we all got to know each other better then. So I moved back to Texas. He stayed in California and became a record producer, and he had a chance to produce some sides for the Urban Cowboy movie on Mickey Gilley. And he called me asking me if I had any songs for the project, and I had a song for that project, and it's called Jukebox Argument, and it was in the Urban Cowboy movie, and it's a song about two people who won't speak to each other, so they're arguing, they won't speak, so they argue by playing songs back and forth on the jukebox, and she plays Release Me, and he plays Stand By Your Man, and she plays Don't Be Angry, and he plays Out of Hand, and she plays Good Hearted Woman and When Will I Be Loved, and he plays He'll Have to Go in the Window Up Above, and she plays Jealous Heart and Suspicious Mind, and he plays Cheating Heart and Lying, and she plays I'll Get Over You, and he plays Born to Lose. It goes on and on like that. It's a bunch of song titles. Anyway, it's like a kind of a novelty song like that. But that was my foot in the door to come to Nashville, is having a song in the Urban Cowboy movie.
So just that one song changed your life.
It really did. I wrote that song because I was completely bored playing this bar for 2 years in Dallas, and I had that song. Jim had recorded that song, and it was enough for me to move my. Then I had two kids, young, 2 and 4, and we moved to. Jim Ed Norman moved my family to Nashville and gave me a job as a staff writer for his publishing company. And I wrote for his publishing company for 3 years. And within a week, being in Nashville for 2 weeks, I got a job playing guitar with Guy Clark and worked with him for about 3 years. And then Jim Ed sold that publishing company, and he went on to be president of Warner Brothers Records, and he was president of Warner Brothers Records for 25 years or so. And at that point, I went to Tree Publishing, which was a legendary publisher of Willie Nelson and Hank Cochran and Roger Miller and tons. And then eventually Tree was sold and became Sony Music Publishing. And I was a staff writer there for 15 years.
Can I ask you, when he offered you to come to Nashville and work for him in his publishing company, did you have a sense of, like, were you a good songwriter? Did you have a sense of being what it would be like to be a songwriter in residence or to be a staff songwriter in a publishing company?
Well, that was my introduction to doing that. I mean, I moved to Nashville and realized, because previously the songs I wrote the songs for the 2 records I made in California, and I wrote a bunch of songs for my rock band project in Texas, and I began writing songs and playing all this country music, and I would write songs that the dancers could dance to, a 2-step and a waltz and a 4/4 shuffle and a line dancing song. And so I started writing those kind of songs, and by the time I got to Nashville, I didn't really realize that there were people that got up every day and drank their coffee and went to work and wrote songs all day long as a profession, a non-performing songwriter in a room every day, and you get up and work at it. Songs came to me, and also the co-writing part, the collaboration was something that I had done some collaborating, but not that not that much until I moved to Nashville. And at that point, I started collaborating a lot with all these really great songwriters in Nashville, and learned a lot from that.
So I wonder how, if you're just a person who's inspired to write whenever the feeling hits you or whatever, because you didn't write every day. What was it like to all of a sudden go to the office and write a song every day?
It was it was a challenge, but it was also thrilling. I got to Nashville and met all these really great songwriters, and I think because I wrote for Jim Ed Norman's publishing company, and he was producing Gilly and a guy named Johnny Lee and still Ann Murray, and later on Charlie Rich, and then. But because I was writing for his publishing company and he was a record producer, I think a lot of those legendary great songwriters were willing to write with me because they figured, well, if they write songs with the guy who's a publisher as a producer, maybe they'll get some those songs recorded, And so I had the opportunity to write with a lot of established writers, and I kind of absorbed the Nashville way and I had been exposed to all that country music through my time back in Texas after I got my butt kicked in California. Uh,
I wonder though, when you started writing and then all of a sudden you're collaborating with all these musicians, in the beginning, was there ever a point where you felt like you were overmatched or that you didn't belong? Or did that come to you very quickly and you felt at home working with anybody?
well, I was intimidated by some of these legendary songwriters, absolutely. I mean, I would go to write with somebody and they'd have publishing awards all over their walls, and they had a history of having written a bunch of hits. But it was really, it's all about having an idea and a concept for a song, and I would always do my homework and try to bring as much as I could to the collaboration, to be hold up my end of it, and we would craft songs together, and a lot of it was crafting. It was knowing that, and then when I started writing for Tree Publishing, that was 1983, and I was in a situation where Tree was a one-stop for every artist that made records in Nashville. It would be the kind of thing that if I had an idea for a song, even though maybe my way that I could hear that title being written was more like I'd like to hear Eric Clapton do that concept for the song, but Conway Twitty's cutting in 3 weeks, and so you write the song aimed at the place you can get it recorded. So a lot of it is like it's the it's almost like you're applying yourself to something that you can make a living writing songs, and you're writing songs and they're directed at people who will record them. They need songs, and you want to get songs recorded, and you're writing for that market. It's a specific thing, and I applied myself to doing that for a number of years before I tried to stretch out and be more of an artist about it.
So when you get hired, obviously I presume you're on salary.
Yeah.
Do you keep the writing credits and then you lose the publishing credits, or how does that work? And
Well, fortunately, I landed in a situation where I could co-publish my songs, so I had half the publishing and all my writers share, and then they would advance me enough money that I didn't have to. During this time, my early days in Nashville, I told you I played with Guy Clark on the road at first, and then I played with Billy Joe Shaver on the road for a while, and then Bobby Bear and some other situations. I was playing guitar to make a living to supplement my advance for royalties. And then it was not until 1984 that I had my first number one record, and that was on Don Williams. It was called That's the Thing About Loving. And from there, I started getting more songs on the charts, and I didn't have to go on the road playing guitar anymore.
Is it all about hits? I mean, I would presume you have like written 500, 600 songs that have been recorded.
Mm.
I presume it's not always about chart position. Like if you write a good song, it's a good song, and it might be recorded by a number of people. But how do you measure? Like, is it important that it becomes a hit, or do you think of it that way?
Well, it changes. I mean, yeah, it's important that it's a hit. In those days, in the '80s, I mean, I'm writing for a major publishing company, and in order to keep the gig as a writer at a major publishing company, you're expected to write hits that get on the radio. Um, and I was competitive to, everybody wants to write a hit because that's not only, how you make a living for I had four kids to raise and get them through college and everything. And to be able to do that as a songwriter, you got to write hits, and you're hoping to write hits, but I'm being exposed to the incredible artistry of Guy Clark and the amazing Billy Joe Shaver, and I'm having all these examples of so I wanted to write great songs, and sometimes a great song can be a hit, but there's a lot of times that a great song is just not going to be a radio song. It's just the way it is. We all know so many great songs that have never seen the radio. But
Other than the financial rewards of a hit song, does writing a great song that might not be a hit song give you just as much satisfaction, just for yourself?
absolutely much more. If it's a great song, then that's that's special, and it's part of your life. I mean, I've had hit songs that I don't ever play in public, you know. Yeah.
Okay, so you get this first number one hit song, and then others start to follow. In your mind, what is a hit song? Like, how does that happen?
Well, it's a record label spends a lot of money on radio promotion, and there's an artist that's established that has a following and can get on the radio, and all those things have to intersect at the same time, for something to emerge as a hit. There's not anything that you can define that's specific way to have a hit song. It's just,
Yeah.
um, I mean, I've got, of course, I would say I've got lots of songs that I think should have been hits or could have been hits, and I'm writing songs still all the time that if the radio were different than it is now in the current state of radio music in Nashville, I got plenty of songs that could be hits, but the nature of contemporary country pop music is, it's different now. It's a different genre, even than the music I made in the 80s and 90s.
Does the way you write, is it different? I mean, because the world has changed, the industry has changed, but the actual art of writing the song, has that changed for you in all these years?
Well, I think it's a different approach for different applications. It's like um, a lot of the song I've had all these songs recorded, and there's a long list of artists that I've written for, but it's in some ways I began to look at my songwriting as a service to for people who are making records and they need songs, and I would collaborate with all kinds of artists. It might be a collaboration with my friend Delbert McClinton, and he's recorded like 35 of our songs, and I produced 5 of his records and all that. And it was all kind of in the service because I loved the music that Delbert made so much. And we're both from Texas, and we both love blues music, and we had a compatible relationship. And but at the same time, I've collaborated with someone like Marty Stewart, who's more mainstream country, or just different kinds of songs for different kinds of people.
So, depending on who you work with, and you've worked with some great songwriters like John
Yeah,
Prine or
yeah.
Guy Clark, or I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But each one you work with brings a different thing to the table that makes the
Oh,
song different.
absolutely. And for me, like the experience of writing with John, of course, I was a huge John Prine fan um, anyway, and so when I'm writing with John, I'm trying to write the best John Prine song I can with John. I'm not going to present him with an idea that would be for Eric Clapton or Buddy Guy or something. It's like I was just trying to swim in the same waters as him, and write something that would be in his style. And but we did write some really rocking things that were outside of his wheelhouse, that you know that I could bring something to him that he hadn't attempted before, and it was fun. It was what made it fun for him. It's like it's that's the beauty of collaboration. I've enjoyed it so much to be able to do a lot of different styles, and but it's still the sensibilities of writing a song, the collaborative nature of it, and the fact that you're really at the mercy of a great idea. If you got something to say and something to craft out of your imagination, that's what propels the whole thing along
Um,
in any situation.
how does it begin? Is it, and I'm sure you've been asked this, and there's probably many different ways the song is created. But I've heard people talk about the chorus or the title of the song often drives the whole piece. In your case, is that true, or does it come in all different shapes and forms?
Well, it does come in all shapes and forms. I mean, sometimes it'll be that you just have a groove and you're playing a chord sequence on the guitar or piano, and that inspires something to be said in the room that maybe you've subconsciously been thinking about it, but you never thought about it being a song until those words appear, because a certain musical motif was developed and comes along. But I'm a real fan of titles, and because the title of a song dictates so much. I mean, it tells you the kind of song, the mood of it. You're not going to write a song like like "The House Is Rocking, Don't Bother Knocking" as a waltz, you know. And so, yeah, I'm a real fan of having the seeds. I think the titles as being seeds uh, of um, of songs, and a lot of times if I get together with someone to collaborate, we both compare whatever titles that we've stashed away, and ideas and concepts that haven't been developed, and what we think. If I have a particular co-writer, it's like I know that this guy is going to be um, helpful and a good collaborator for a certain kind of idea, and another guy is going to be a better collaborator for a different kind of title, a different idea. And so you kind of can cast your ideas for different collaborators. And, uh, and also it's like, like I've written a bunch of songs for Buddy Guy's records over the last number of years. And it's blues music, it's like what you're going after because it's Buddy Guy and B.B. King and the kind of music that's going to get made and that propels you along.
Does it ever surprise you as the end result? So, like, I presume with Buddy Guy, you're working with Tom Hambridge, his
Yeah,
producer.
yeah.
And I don't know if you sit down with Buddy as well, but does it ever surprise you when you work with somebody and then that person takes it to somebody else and the song becomes something else? Does that, I mean, because every artist will have different ideas for the music that you write. Does it ever surprise you at the end product?
Yes. Um, well, in particular, in the case with Tom, he's the drummer and record producer for Buddy. So if I had a song idea, a concept that I thought would work for Buddy, I would save it for the time that I'm going to get together with Tom because Tom was so good at producing Buddy's records. He could take take the songs to Buddy and I knew that he'd make a record out of it. He's excellent record producer and he would coach Buddy through the vocal and nothing ever had to be demoed beyond um, yelling the phone into yelling the song into a phone, and then Tom would go and demo the songs really well and present them to Buddy, and then in the production of it, he would coach Buddy through the vocals and it would work. But oddly enough, I've had recently a real straight up kind of blues song was recorded by Foghat, which I never dreamed I would have a song recorded by Foghat. Yeah.
And how does that happen? The producer you knows your work and presents it to the band. Is that the way it would normally work?
Yeah, yeah. Or they hear the song some other way, or there's another odd thing that I was thinking of. Bad to the Bone. What's that guy's
Oh,
name?
George Thorogood.
George Thorogood. Yeah, George Thorogood recorded a song of mine recently, and it's a real folky kind of a song. Real, it sounds more like a John Prine kind of song, but I guess he fell into it and wanted to do something like that, to do something different, I guess.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
so,
when you've written as many songs as you have, can you tell me when was the moment where you thought? I mean, obviously having a number one hit makes you think I'm a good songwriter, but was there a moment where you thought I'm a good songwriter? Like to know that? Because that had
well,
to take time.
yeah, it takes time. The thing is, Marco, it's like the kind of thing where I've been doing this so long now that I do have a level of confidence about it, so that I know that if I'm chasing down an idea and I'm working on something, that I know that eventually it's going to be good. I'm gonna work on it until it's good, and I kind of know what my level of ability is to make it happen, and so I think just the uh, cumulative effect of having done it so long, it's not like there's one moment that I said, aha, I'm a really good songwriter now.
Right.
It's just like something that I think is anything that you do for a long time and you come to a level that you recognize, the doing of it. Interesting story is I was on the road with Guy Clark once, and we had a layover, and we had to just stay in the motel for a couple of days. And Guy and I were there alone, and he had this book that he wrote all these great songs in. It's just, and I was looking at the book, and we're up in the middle of the night drinking tequila and carrying on, and I just said to him, "Do you realize how great this is?" Because he had all his lyrics written in this book, and I said, "Do you realize how great this is?" And he said, "Yeah." And there wasn't any ego in it. It wasn't like him saying, he was able at that point in his life to objectively look at it and recognize it as really great art. Guy was an artist in the highest sense, and he could see that. He could look at his own work and say, yeah, this. And so if without trying to be braggy or anything, or insert your ego into it, if you can, it takes some time to look back on something that you've done, but if you're being honest with yourself and it's not some kind of false humility, then you can look at something and say, well, yeah, that's a really good song. I wrote it, and it's really good, it's just the truth. It's not like, but I've written plenty of songs that I don't think are any good either.
I wonder when you're writing, do you have, like, when I talk to a lot of musicians, some people are constantly writing, but most aren't. Most will write when they're inspired to do so, or when they have the pressure to do the next album. You have the discipline. I presume you work every day at this, or most days.
Yeah, most days, but
Like, have you
you
had
know,
like writer's block and couldn't produce for a long period of time?
yeah, I don't really believe in writer's block. Because I mean, if you just, I mean, I enjoy the process so much that, um, and the other thing that has to do with collaboration. If you're collaborating, you get in a room with somebody, and you're taking up their time, and they're with you, and it's like you work at it. And if you're both professional songwriters and you've written a lot of songs, if you get in a room with a professional songwriter, you know, I mean, there's been times that I get with guys that have written a bunch of hits and they're great songwriters, and we just don't find an idea between us that's worth chasing down, or we keep bringing up titles and said, "Oh yeah, I wrote that 12 years ago. That was on the last record by Randy Travis." Or, "Oh, you never heard my B-side?" You know, it's like, but yeah, it's like I'm always got my antenna up for um, some phrase that comes out of the culture or something. Like these last couple of records I've made have been really politically motivated because of what's going on in our culture and the divisions and everything. And that's what has led me to this current record, Common Sense, which is really just a reflection on what's going on in the culture, how divided we are. And the record before that was called The Great Divide. And these records are me indulging myself as an artist it's for my own sake.
And is there? Sorry, I didn't check the songwriting credits on the recent albums, but are there collaborations, or are they mainly stuff that you do all on your own?
There's about this last record was mostly solo written, but there's 4 or 5 collaborations, and one of them is with Guy from a while back, and yeah, there's some collaborations as well as solo written songs, and the record previous to that was almost completely solo written. The Great Divide.
Okay, so when you collaborate, I presume there's some people, whether it be that the time that you got together there wasn't no connection or whatever. I presume that there are times when you get together for a writing session, things don't gel or things don't happen. But other writers that you sit down with and they approach the art of writing so differently that it stuck out to you, or is songwriting pretty well the same across the board? Whoever they are, it starts this way and ends this way.
Well, there's some people that I've collaborated with who just don't write lyrics. They're like one of my very favorite collaborators is a guy named Al Anderson that was in NRBQ, that famous band, and Al is a really great guitar player and has interesting grooves and feels, and he plays changes on the guitar that I don't. I have to get him to show me how to play the song after we write it. But he's really charging through with the music, and I write the lyrics. And it's from the very first times we ever started writing songs, it's me writing lyrics and him writing the music mostly. And then some, now there's a popular thing about people that build tracks, and they call the songwriting part of it top lining, and it's which I can't really figure out how that works because to me, if there's a track, but I've collaborated with Stevie Nicks on some songs where I just wrote the track with a friend of mine and sent it to Stevie, and she wrote all the lyrics and sang the melody, and it's totally that. Or like collaborating with Ringo, I know that the things that Ringo wants to talk about as far as the peace and love and those kind of themes, and I bring those kind of ideas to him, and I know what his vocal range is, and kind of what we're going to do and what he's going to respond to, and so it's just it is different with everybody pretty much.
I wonder that kid who used to have a Beatles cover band to sit there and work with Ringo. What was that like for you?
It's unbelievable. I mean, it just I it's all I can do to resist doing like a Chris Farley thing. But, it's like so what when you were at Shea Stadium? I mean, what about Ed Sullivan or I have to not ever talk about Beatley stuff around him and just act like I'm just there to do the work and not go crazy gaga, but he's Ringo, and I think he appreciates that, and so it leaves him open. He'll tell me great Beatles stories because I've never asked him about any Beatles stuff, you know.
Okay, so the other thing is you have another persona, a blues musician named Whitey
Yeah,
Johnson. Tell
yeah.
me about why that happened and the necessity of creating this character.
Well, it all started with I wrote a short story about a fictional composite character of my youth that was um, it's partially spawned from the truth. This guy was albino, and so he was white, but he was black, and he was a great guitar player, played with Little Richard and stuff, and um, there was the racial tensions of the '60s that he was right in the middle of, and that's kind of what the Whitey Johnson short story was about. It was written because there was a book being put together called A Guitar and a Pen, and it was going to feature short stories by songwriters, and various songwriters contributed to this book, and so that was the story that I wrote, and it was called Whitey Johnson, and after that I was playing a lot of country blues and enjoying playing guitar with my friend Colin Linden. And we just kind of said, me and Whitey Johnson kind of emerged from that, and one day we drove down Fifth Street in Nashville, and there's a white suit in the window, and it's a 2 for 1. You know, it's like $100 suit, but if you pay 15 more dollars, you can get a purple one for Colin. And so uh, we we played a blues festival in Canada, and Colin took me up there, and I put the white suit on, and my friend Kev Mo was on the thing, and so was Robert Gray, and we took a picture with Whitey in the middle of those guys. We called the Oreo picture, and but you know, Colin called me out and told the story about meeting me and this Whitey Johnson thing, and the Canadian crowd just went for it. And you know, I played a couple songs, got a standing ovation at the festival, and we said, well, maybe we should. So Colin and I started playing, doing the Whitey Johnson thing, and it developed to the point that I had a band in Nashville, of course, and then in Austin and Los Angeles and Chicago and San Francisco. I'd have different groups of musicians because I couldn't really afford to move musicians around and travel. I'd have different friends in different areas, and the songs were pretty simple blues-based rock and roll blues songs, and it just kind of went from there. And I've kind of put Whitey out on vacation for a while I'm doing this, promoting this Common Sense record uh, of mine. That in this political season, it's what I'm kind of focused on. But I want to keep making music for Whitey Johnson as well. You know.
How do you get better as a guitar player? I mean, when you focus so much on being a songwriter, does your guitar playing take a back seat, or is it all part of the same thing?
Well, it's kind of all part of the same thing, but I have to say that I'm not the kind of disciplined guitar player that gets up and practices his instrument every day. It's like I get better from playing the gig. You know, it's always been if I'm not playing in a band electric guitar, um, you know, if I'm playing consistently enough, then I get better. I've got headroom to sing as well. I can hit the notes that I'm going for as a singer, and I can play stronger guitar stuff. But if I'm not doing it all the time, then it's like use it or lose it, on the guitar, and so it's a dreadful feeling to not have calluses on my fingers
I can imagine.
from being in a writing mode all the time. Because typically what will happen to me is I start playing guitar and I launch off into writing a song, and then you put the guitar down and you're writing a song all of a sudden, and you don't have to be playing the guitar to write the song.
Is it always the guitar? Do you ever play the piano?
I play piano, just very elementary songwriter's piano. I can't play solos and improvise on the piano, but I really enjoy playing the changes on the piano.
And what would be the difference between writing a song on the piano and guitar for you?
Well, for me, because I'm not developed as a piano player, it's the opportunity to be able to have everything under my fingers, to be able to explore some. Although honestly, I'm not that developed enough on the piano to take advantage of all the possibilities harmonically that I could if I had a broader harmonic imagination and was a more developed piano player. It'd probably be an opportunity to explore a lot more than I have. So when I'm playing the piano, I'm pretty much playing the same kind of changes that I play on guitar, and it's all pretty simple, um, you know, 3, 4, 5, or 6 chords, in sequences. So, you know, it's a great feeling to just transfer existing songs that I've always been playing on guitar to play them on the piano. Just it helps my piano playing.
I want to ask you about Delbert McClinton, who you've known for like a really long time, like in
Yeah,
maybe in your
really.
teenage years or something that you met him first.
I didn't know that, I moved to Hollywood, I was saying, in 1970. Delbert was out there. Delbert and Glenn Clark were out there at the same time. I never knew them then. I knew T-Bone Burnett a little bit in California, but then I moved back in 73. So by 74 or 5, I was playing a little bit with Delbert, and I would go out with him on the road for a little while, and then come back and we played a little bit together through the 70s, and then I moved to Nashville in 1980, and he moved here in about 86 or 7, I guess, and we started writing together all the time, and we made um, 5 records together, and we won a couple of Grammys for those, for 2 of those, and we always got nominated, and um, he's he's my best pal. I talk to him every day, and we're hanging out constantly, and I've Delbert's influence on my music is one of the strongest influences on the way I make music of anyone, because I just immediately fell in love with what he did because of the mixture of country music and blues and R&B all melded together in such a natural way that's it's like the heart of rock and roll is built into Delbert McClinton. It's not anything that, no, he would never say anything as ridiculous as that about himself.
Right.
I can tell the world about how great he is, because it's totally a natural occurrence. It's just what came to him. He's an amazing artist. Beyond being able, I mean, his singing and the sound of his voice and everything, we all love. I think Lyle Lovett said something like, if we could all sing the way we want to, we'd all sound like Delbert.
Well, and how lucky are you to have been able to work with him? And you've done what, like 30, 40 songs and produced
Yeah,
a bunch of his albums and won
yeah,
Grammys together. Like,
that's fantastic. It's a wonderful experience. Just it's been it's just been great to
yeah,
work. It's like now over the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, we don't really write songs together anymore. It's just he's retired from touring and making records and stuff, but uh, we it's rare that we write a song together. It's just we kind of did it for a long, long time, and it's kind of something we've done. Um, but there's been no greater influence than Delbert on my own music making. I mean, uh, it's ridiculous, his influence on me. It's just
well, I think my first encounter with your name comes from your work with Delbert.
yeah, yeah.
So my final question to you: when you look back at all the things that you did, and we really haven't even touched you doing your production work or being a producer, which you've done with many, and the hundreds of people that you've worked with, and the hundreds of songs you've written. When you look back on that career, how do you look back on it?
Well, I just look back on it with incredible gratitude and amazement that I've been able to make a living as a songwriter all these years. I mean, it's unreal. I mean, the circumstances that have evolved. It's just like the thing of having had a Beatle band when I was a teenager, and then writing 8 or 10 songs with Ringo, and Paul played on a couple of them, and then the thing about being a kid that was crazy about B.B. King and Buddy Guy when I was a teenager. Now, Buddy's cut like 20 songs, that, and I've had 5 or 6 B.B. King songs, and Etta James and Bonnie Raitt and all these people that I totally revere as artists, and to be able to have had them record my songs, it's amazing to look at it and reflect on it. I've just been so crazy fortunate. It's just, if you said, when I look back on it, just gratitude is the main word, I think.
Well, thank you so much for spending this time with me. It's a real honor to sit down and talk to you about.
Well, I'm fascinated that you know as much about my career as you do, that you did your homework and knew some questions to ask. You were astute enough to look up, whatever I've done, and were curious enough to ask the questions that would pull some of this information out of me that I don't ever talk about it. So,
Well, it's an impressive career, and to think that you didn't go out to, you just kind of fell into the songwriting thing as a profession, just not as a mistake, but an opportunity was presented to you from nowhere. I'm sure you would have always written songs, but to have done as much as you have, it's pretty impressive, and I'm honored that you would spend this time to talk to me about it.
I appreciate it. I enjoyed it a lot, Mako.
Thank you very much.
Good to meet you.
Good to meet you. Hopefully we can meet again.
Yeah, we'll do it anytime.
All right.